Is Heavy D from Diesel Brothers coming to an end on this occasion? Heavy D went from being a typical motor engine enthusiast from Utah to one of the most well-known names in the world. The public was captivated by Heavy D's jaw-dropping and inventive truck constructions, which allowed him to thrive in the cutthroat entertainment industry that featured shows such as Street Outlaws and Fast and Loud. On the other hand, a catastrophe has been simmering for years behind those magnificent constructions. Heavy D has been engulfed by that catastrophe, which has also consumed his business, drained a significant portion of his riches, and compelled him to walk away from the things that he loves the most. It was for this reason that Diesel Brothers was abruptly shut down. In any case, what exactly took place with Heavy D Sparks? Are he capable of rising up and rewriting his own story? Even the fans could not have anticipated this. Heavy D was born in Salt Lake City, Utah, to a family that was not particularly wealthy. Discipline, perseverance, and hard work were exactly what the family needed in terms of financial resources. Because of his strict father, who had served in the United States Army, he was able to do this. The father of Heavy D was dismissed from the Army due to the fact that he was diagnosed with a brain tumor and given a few weeks to live. Heavy D's father continued to battle for his life, but it was not an easy fight. The weeks grew into years, and he continued to fight. At one point in time, the family was forced to live on the streets because they were unable to afford to rent a house out of their own resources. Nevertheless, love continued to permeate throughout their family, and despite the fact that he was strict, his father was a kind and calming presence. Heavy D was a child who demonstrated a high level of curiosity, and the thing that piqued his interest the most was motor engines. He was raised in an environment that was both strict and nurturing. In contrast to the majority of children, this was not a casual curiosity in engines. Heavy D had a strong preoccupation with machines. During his adolescent years, the only thing he required was a motor vehicle. He could easily pass a significant amount of time by working with trucks, four-wheelers, and dirt bikes. Even more than that, he gave preference to working on engines that were seated in a classroom. Because he found classes to be so dull, he asserted that he was able to acquire more knowledge by holding a wrench in his hand than by using a pen in a classroom setting. This turned out to be accurate. He was so enthusiastic about engines that he devoted the majority of his time in high school to learning about car mechanics, welding, and fabrication. Heavy D was driven by his enthusiasm for engines. It was also his parents that contributed to his passion for automobiles. Following the discharge of Heavy D's father from the military, Heavy D's father installed automobile stereos. As a result, Heavy D, who was enamored with automobiles, was affected. His mother took up the installation of vehicle stereos when his father was unable to do so due to illness. Following his graduation from high school, Heavy D went in search of employment, and his close buddy Rich Eggett provided him with a job. Rich was the owner of an ATV and motorbike rental company, and he appointed Heavy D to the position of manager of the company. Heavy D maintained his concentration, and he absorbed as much information as he could from the company. In spite of this, education continued to be a top emphasis. When he was 21 years old, he decided to enroll in undergraduate school. Heavy D will be eternally grateful to his father for instilling in him the principles of tenacity and resilience because of what he taught him. The father of Heavy D was able to survive a stroke, but he continued to live with a brain tumor. If his father was able to make it through all of that, what was it about college that he was unable to make it through? Nevertheless, it was terrible that his father was not constantly present. Heavy D's father passed away when he was only 21 years old after a long and difficult battle with his health. Despite the fact that Heavy D was left with a gap in his heart as a result of the passing of his father, Heavy D was aware that he needed to persevere and be there for his family. He was fully committed to achieving greater levels of success than ever before, but he did not believe that attending college would assist him in doing so. In the past, he did not have the impression that he was a part of the group. Why then should one remain? After completing one semester in college, he decided to leave. His bereavement turned out to be a defining moment in his life, one that would determine the direction he would go in. Hard D made the decision to work for his Uncle Bill. As the owner of a construction company and worked on locations all over the state of Utah, Heavy D was a heavy equipment operator, and throughout the brief time that he spent in college, he experienced a sense of belonging that he had never experienced before. Heavy D kept his composure during the physically demanding labor, and as a result, he quickly became noticeable. In contrast to the other individuals he collaborated with, Heavy D has ambitious goals. It was not enough for him to just receive hourly wages. What is his objective? He had a strong desire to be so much more, and he was always looking for opportunities to explore these possibilities. Heavy D was already exhausted from operating heavy equipment, but this did not prevent him from working as the director of marketing for Rich Eggett, who is now the owner of a watch firm called Rockwell Watches. Inspiration came from Heavy D. He made the decision to bet on himself, and his objective was to launch his own company and work on issues that he was enthusiastic about. In order to completely explore his own potential and take charge of his life, Heavy D desired to seize that control. It was only a few years after Heavy D started working for his uncle that he decided to start his own company. Excavation was the nature of the business. Among other things, he graded driveways, shifted dirt, and cleared areas. Then, his company saw growth. Heavy D started constructing rock walls, waterfalls, and other forms of landscaping projects during this time period. Heavy D had a good understanding of marketing, and he was aware that in order for him to build his career, his work needed to speak for itself. As a result, Heavy D devotes himself entirely to his work, often putting in as much as 12 hours of work each day. As a result of the excellent work that he had done, his customers started recommending him to other people, and he continued to receive work opportunities. In spite of this, Heavy D was not in the business of producing enormous diesel engines. In other words, how did he move from being a construction worker to being able to create massive machines? This man, Heavy D, is a devout Muslim. It is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, also known as the LDS Church, that he regularly attends and is an active member of. During his younger years, he was also a member of the church's missionary organization and served for a period of 2 years in the Amazon region of Bolivia and Brazil. The lessons that his father instilled in him regarding the importance of the principles of service, compassion, and hard labor were reinforced by his missionary service. He continued to go to church activities, and it was during one of the numerous church events that Heavy D went to that he met David Kiley, the guy who would later be known as Diesel Dave. Heavy D continued to go to church events up until that point. Due to the fact that Dave and Heavy D both had a strong interest in religion, they quickly became the best of friends. Year 2008 marked the beginning of Heavy D's excavation business, and he hired Dave to handle and manage the equipment. In addition to that, he employed 2 additional individuals to assist Dave. The excavation company that Heavy D owned and operated continued to operate, but his passion for automobiles continued to increase. Ignoring it was no longer an option for Heavy D, and in 2009, not long after he tied the knot, Heavy D completed the process of applying for and obtaining his dealer license. The new business that Heavy D established was called Diesel Sellers, and it also launched a used car lot. It was then that he started selling automobiles. But this was not the path he intended to take throughout his entire life. Heavy D had the intent of establishing a business in which he would repair and personalize automobiles. The transition from selling automobiles to repairing them and finally customizing them was a gradual but steady process for Heavy D. On the other hand, if he wanted to grow, he required assistance. On the other hand, he needed to make sure that he hired good individuals to assist him. Who could Heavy D put his faith in? These. That was the difficulty. He began his list with Diesel Dave as the first item. These 2 individuals shared a common set of interests. In addition to being devout, they both had a passion for everything that had even a passing connection to a mechanical motor, and they also had a deep affection for enormous vehicles. The fact that they had a passion for machines was the simple reason why they worked so well together. Both of them were excellent complements to one another in other areas as well. In the world of business, Heavy D was known as the individual who possessed extraordinary marketing talents and an insane ambition. Dave was the one who brought the humor and the flair for showmanship to the table all the time. A company called Sparks Motors was established by Heavy D so that he could construct customized diesel trucks, give them a distinctive appearance, and eventually sell them for a profit. Crazy designs were created by the 2 individuals who also put their customized vehicles through their paces by doing dangerous stunts. However, they had a thought. Together, the 2 could construct their trucks and demonstrate to the entire world how they functioned. They would be able to amuse themselves while also marketing their trucks in this manner. When YouTube was still in its infancy, the 2 individuals made the decision to upload their creations to the platform. After establishing a channel, they started filming the trucks that they had constructed. Their first attempts were not very successful. Both the camera and the environment were in a state of complete disarray. In contrast, they were just starting out and were simply having a good time. There was one aspect of their videos that stuck out, despite the fact that they were shaky and rough. They possessed traits like authenticity, sincerity, and enthusiasm. The crowd fell in love with them due to their genuineness as well as the completely insane antics that they performed. It is difficult to imagine that the audience would not enjoy watching large trucks jump over cars. They started to be recognized as a symbol of the truck culture in the United States. In addition to providing people with a show, they were regarded as the heroic underdogs who accomplished great feats. They delivered the kind of unfiltered entertainment and excitement that the audience yearned for, and in 2014, they elevated things to a whole new level. It was captured on film when one of their trucks was carrying a trailer that weighed 10 tons. After the video was released, it became an instant hit, and the two individuals were well on their way to being famous. There have already been instances of improbable celebrities, skateboarders, pranksters, and vloggers gaining popularity on the internet. However, mechanics who were also known to play jokes. Heavy D and Dave were able to dominate that unexplored terrain, which was under their control. Heavy D was inspired by the progress he was making, and as a result, he and Dave became even more bold wit.